Now more of the Midcoast Morning Buzz with Richard and Jim. Radio 9, WCME.
Well, James, our guest this morning are Jennifer Blanchard. She's the executive director of the Pejepscot Historical Society, and Chelsea Gross. She's a Bowdoin College senior. She has done her thesis on the archaeological findings from the Joshua Chamberlain house. Ladies, thank you so much for coming in this morning. How are you?
Thanks for having us.
I want to start off with Chelsea. Chelsea, you did a fantastic lecture last week on your findings. Good for you for turning around this dig that you did in 2010 to your honors project and your thesis, and all you had to do was walk across the street from the Bowdoin College campus. So smart move on your part.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about this. Joshua Chamberlain is such an iconic figure here in the Midcoast, particularly here in Brunswick. In a nutshell, what is it that you found at the site, and what constituted the dig? How deep did you need to go? How many sites did you actually excavate? What were some of the surprises that you found?
Sure. Well, we excavated about 4 different spots around the house. They're called units. And we found a surprising number of artifacts. We didn't really expect to find anything that would date to Joshua Chamberlain's period in the house, but we did. But a lot of ceramics, glass in the form of alcohol and medicine bottles. And then I guess the only surprising thing was we found a tricycle in the back of the house.
Now, I wasn't aware that tricycles were around back then. I mean, I've seen some old wooden bikes. What was the construction of this?
It was definitely metal, and it did not look like any tricycle I'd ever seen before, just in terms of the way it was worked.
Now, what were you seeing the time period pre and then post-Civil War as it related to Chamberlain's wealth, the artifacts that they used, just the common items, the china, the dishes, from common to something a little more opulent, correct?
Well, we actually, in the ceramics that we found things that must have been bought when they had their wealth. Mm-hmm. So we don't really have anything to compare to. The dating of the ceramics suggests that they all happened and were bought after the wealth.
I see. One of the interesting things, and you and I talked about this before going to air, and in part of your lecture was that the census that was done pre-Civil War, he had about $500 liquid, and his house was assessed at what, $2,000, something like that?
Yeah, about $3,000.
And then after the Civil War, the following census, about 5 years after the Civil War, his wealth had gone up to $16,000 liquid asset.
Yep, exactly.
And his house was then reappraised to, $6,000, something like that?
About $5,000, yeah.
Now, someone at the lecture suggested that that was due to the gold standard. There was a shifting of the gold standard here in the United States, but that's a lot of money. That's a fat load of cash to go from $500 to $16,000 in 5 years. You didn't explain or go into it, but how did that happen? How did he get that amount of money in that short period of time after the war?
He definitely earned a lot of money quickly after coming back from the Civil War and his experience at Little Round Top. People were very excited to hear him speak. A lot of different agencies and universities around New England immediately started requesting him. And he would receive up to $500 for these kinds of engagements.
And he was a true hero. The Battle of Little Round Top, that was a deciding point in the Civil War of the Union defeating the Confederates. Jennifer, you can answer this. Can we say enough about what a national hero this guy was? I mean, he really was a big deal. Not just a local hero. This guy was a big deal and a turning point of the war.
He was certainly a big deal, and he certainly continues to hold a lot of interest for a lot of people all around the country, and we see that in the visitors who come to the Chamberlain Museum each year. There's a bit of legend built up around him, much of it well-founded, much of it based on the Gettysburg film from the 1990s. But a lot, I think, is due to the way that he effectively executed very creative military strategy at Gettysburg, as well as the grace with which he and his troops received the surrender of Lee's army at Appomattox.
How was he as a Maine governor?
As a Maine governor, he was seen as this sort of leading military and government figure in the state, both during his time as governor and in the years after. He was frequently called upon to come in and help with various issues and crises throughout his lifetime.
Chelsea, maybe you can speak to this too. Did you do any research as to what was going on as a family unit and as a political leader at that time in relation to the archaeological dig? Do you have any insight as to how he was as a governor, and looking at some of the letters that you found as well?
Well, what's interesting about when he was a governor was that he was completely removed from his family and the rest of his household. So he had up to 4 people living in the household with him at this point, and his family members, and they all stayed in Brunswick while he was in Augusta.
Yes. And how long was he governor?
He was definitely governor for 4 years.
4 years, okay. And did he come back and forth? Did he travel back and forth? And how much of a haul was it from Augusta to Brunswick back then?
It would have been a train. It's about 30 miles.
Yeah.
So.
More so about what you found. One would think that back then, when we didn't have access to a lot, we weren't really a disposable society, but people generally just threw stuff out their windows. And that's something that I find amazing, especially in these archaeological digs, that you find artifacts in their whole form that perhaps should have been recycled, like the apothecary bottles, the medicine bottles, and things like that. Wouldn't you just keep those? Why were they thrown out? Did that have anything to do with perhaps somebody of wealth? It then became, well, I don't need this anymore because I can buy a new one. Was that the way it was back then?
Sure, a little bit, but also I think that they tended to want to get, like, there was a little bit of an infection problem. Like, generally, people had to put things away, just like any kind of disposal system. So when it's medicines and liquids that might not potentially
So there wasn't a lot of sterilization back then.
Right.
Yeah, so you just tossed things out.
And no excellent town services coming by to take things away.
Jennifer, you have many things coming up in the next few months, some big celebrations at the Pejepscot Historical Society. Tell us about that.
We do. The biggest of them all will be in August 9th through 11th, when we will be marking Chamberlain Days, which is an event that the Historical Society holds every couple of years. But this year, since it's the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, we're hoping for an extra special celebration. We already have encampments by Civil War reenactors planned for the downtown mall. We have special walking tours throughout town, all kinds of good things. But even before that, we have coming up next week for April vacation, a children's activity at Pejepscot on Park Row, 2 p.m. Friday, April 19th. We'll have a Civil War music program led by singer-songwriter Josephine Cameron. And then on April 30th, we're also very excited. We had a very generous member of the Society donate funds to create a short-form documentary on Joshua Chamberlain, and we'll be premiering that April 30th, 7 p.m., Curtis Memorial Library. And how do people get in touch with you and find out about all these things? They can call us at 729-6606 or look at our website, pejepscothistorical.org. Our guests this morning have been Jennifer Blanchard. She's the Executive Director of the Pejepscot Historical Society, and Chelsea Gross, class of 2013 of Bowdoin College. She has done her thesis on the archaeological findings from the Joshua Chamberlain house. Chelsea, congratulations on everything you've done. I hesitate to say best of luck because you get the whole world at your fingertips right now, but we're going to expect great things from you, and I know it's going to happen. And Jennifer, we'll have you in again. So thank you both for coming in this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Radio 9, WCME.